Saturday night at Pearl Harbor. The harbor is full, the ships are lined up. Nobody is at battle stations because there is no battle. America is not at war. Sunday morning. Most of the base is still asleep. Church services are scheduled for later. Breakfast is being prepared. It is the most ordinary morning imaginable. The radar picked them up at 7:02 a.m. 170 aircraft 50 miles out. The duty officer was told. He said it was probably American planes coming in from California. He was wrong in a way that will define his entire life. 7:55 a.m. You hear aircraft. You look up. The planes are very low, lower than American planes fly over the base. Then you see the markings, and the world reorganizes itself in about 2 seconds. The first bombs hit at 7:55 a.m. The USS Arizona's forward magazine explodes. 1,177 men are below deck. The explosion lasts less than a second. Almost all of them never leave the ship. The first 2 minutes are pure chaos. Nobody has a plan for this because this was not supposed to happen here. You run toward where you think you should be and hope that is the right direction. The anti-aircraft guns were not manned. The ammunition was locked. It took critical minutes to unlock it and get to stations. The Japanese planned the timing of the attack, knowing exactly how long that would take. 8 battleships were in the harbor. The Japanese knew exactly where they were. The attack was planned for months, using aerial photography and intelligence from the Japanese consul in Honolulu. Pearl Harbor was not a surprise to everyone. The harbor was on fire. The oil from the ships spread across the water and ignited. Men who survived the explosions jumped into burning water. The choice between fire above and fire below was the choice available. The airfields were hit simultaneously. 188 American aircraft destroyed mostly on the ground. The Japanese wanted no air response. They planned it precisely enough that they got almost none. The hospital was overwhelmed in the first 15 minutes. Doctors and nurses who had treated peacetime accidents were now running mass casualty medicine with what they had on a Sunday morning. At 9:45 a.m., the last Japanese plane left. 110 minutes from the first bomb. The harbor was burning. 2,403 Americans were dead. The quiet that followed was the loudest thing you had ever heard. The rescue operation started before the smoke cleared. Men were still trapped inside capsized ships, banging on the hulls. You could hear them. Getting to them was a different problem. Some men survived inside capsized ships for days, trapped in air pockets in the dark, rationing their air and their calm. Rescuers cut through steel as fast as they could. Not everyone was reached in time. Nobody knew if the Japanese were coming back. Nobody knew if there were submarines in the harbor. Nobody knew if the next thing was an invasion. For 12 hours after the attack, Pearl Harbor operated on the assumption that the worst was not over. That night, Pearl Harbor went completely dark. No lights. Every man on guard duty was running on adrenaline and no sleep, and the specific alertness of someone who learned that morning that impossible things happen. December 8th. Roosevelt spoke to Congress. You listened on a radio somewhere in the wreckage of Pearl Harbor. The words made official what the morning before had already decided. America was at war. The recruiting offices could not handle the lines that formed on December 8th. Men who had no intention of enlisting on December 6th were in line by 8 a.m. on December 8th. Pearl Harbor did that in one morning. The Pacific became a war that lasted 4 years and covered millions of square miles of ocean. The men who survived Pearl Harbor fought most of it. They had reasons that December 7th made personal, island by island across the Pacific, Guadalcanal, Tarawa, Iwo Jima. Each island a version of the same terrible arithmetic. How many men does it cost to take this piece of land from people who will fight to the last man to keep it? August 1945. The bomb fell on Hiroshima, then Nagasaki. The war that Pearl Harbor started for America ended with a weapon that made everything before it look like a different category of violence. The men who had been at Pearl Harbor were still in the Pacific. They were not entirely sorry it was over. The Navy raised and repaired 6 of the 8 battleships attacked at Pearl Harbor. The USS Arizona and USS Utah stayed on the bottom. The others went back to war, and some of them were there when Japan surrendered. You came home. The war lasted 3 years and 8 months after Pearl Harbor. You were in most of it. The person who watched the first bombs fall and the person who came home are connected by the same body and very little else. The Arizona still leaks oil, 1 quart a day, 60 years later. People call it the tears of the ship. The 1,177 men are still inside. The Navy designated the ship a war grave. They stayed where they fell. Every December 7th, the survivors gathered, fewer every year. The last Pearl Harbor veteran verified to have been present during the attack died in 2021. The generation that felt that morning in their bodies is gone now. The names on the wall are the ones who didn't get to grow old, didn't get to come back, didn't get the complicated experience of surviving something that big and carrying it for 80 years. The memorial exists, so the names outlast the people who remembered the faces behind them. The harbor is calm now. The water is blue and clear. Somewhere below the surface, the Arizona is still there and the oil is still rising. And the morning of December 7th, 1941 is still happening. In the only way that mornings that large ever end, slowly and not completely.